Well, on top of that, this one they also didn't like, and this is a scathing review of the movie Elf. So if you guys are at home and you go, I watched Elf with my family, popped it on, you got a problem, folks.
Yeah. I got a fun thing, actually, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
That you're going to like. So I don't think you do this as much, but I always try and see who the person is.
You love doing that.
Who
man.
writes these
Spank
things?
Bank.
For the Spank
You let
Bank.
them cuck you.
So the author of this article, this you'll like just because it's kind of a callback. Her name's Esme Mazzeo, and she's the Entertainment TV Fellow at Insider. That is her title. Is the Entertainment and TV Fellow.
She's the main fellow.
She's the fellow. She's the fellow.
So she basically worked her way up to fellow, and her first thing was Elf's Gotta Go.
Yeah.
Sounds like not a fellow to me.
She was a fellow. She's the Entertainment TV Fellow.
Yeah, I think she's a junior fellow, tops, right, and stuff like that.
I mean, I looked at her profile. It doesn't say anything about seniority. She says fellow.
Top fellow, and doesn't have a problem.
Which is
with
weird
Elf.
because I didn't know fellow was like a fucking like a job. You're like you literally write clickbait.
Yeah.
And they're calling you a fellow?
Yeah, exactly.
That seems like a pretty fucking hoity-toity bullshit for what you're doing.
It is hoity-toity. Yeah, because I always thought it's like an economic think tank where you get called a fellow.
Yeah, well, that's what we were saying it before. That's why I brought it up. And then you're like, she's like, yeah, the Entertainment TV Fellow, and telling you why Elf is like Elf, literally a kid's movie.
She had a big problem with Elf.
That's
my
like
friend.
pretty widely regarded as like, you don't hear a lot of people being like, oh, Elf, that piece of shit. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, and most people are like ambivalent, or they're like, yeah, great, movie, great kids, whatever, easy watch.
Can you imagine she walked in there, Elf's playing Merry Christmas, just getting hit at all angles. So she goes, Elf became a modern classic and instantly after it premiered in 2003. But after 20 years later, it still baffles me how offensive it is to cognitively disabled adults. So if you want to ruin your family party, pop Elf on and just watch everyone shriek in horror.
Yep.
She's acting like Elf's handyman, you know what I mean?
Oh, it's like, it's insane because, again, like the idea that he goes, like, just her whole thing is they call him special.
How does she get to be the senior fellow? Her whole thing
She's
is...
not a senior fellow. She's just a fellow.
Just a fellow.
And Insider, because this is Insider, they're the same ones who went after Portnoy with all that nonsense. And they used to be Business Insider, and they're run by that like dude who's like banned from Wall Street and all this stuff. I really think
Inside
like...
of their dad's ass.
But this sounds like really like, they're like a new, almost like Vice kind of...
They're
like
going hunting for that
Ponzi
territory.
Schemey, like straight clickbait, like on purpose... No journalistic integrity. So they don't even call them journalists. They're like, she's like, can I be a journalist?
That's a good point.
And you're like, no, you're not.
fellow.
You're not a journalist.
No.
Yeah. They're like, we don't want to get sued. So you're not a journalist. You're a fellow.
Oh, that's why they stopped calling themselves
I don't know.
journalists. They don't want to
Well,
get sued, maybe.
I have no idea.
Well, she said she couldn't sit through Elf for 10 minutes without being offended after forcing... That's been one of those things where... You know when everyone's like, oh, these people are offended by everything, and she goes, I can't watch 5 minutes of Elf without being offended.
And she watched like the TBS cut where
She
they
watched
like
the cut.
where they fucking edited it for time and took out like the one time they say shit.
She
just to
needed
make
those
it
breaks when the commercials hit
PG-13.
too to fucking regroup. The commercials come on, she has to fucking walk
She goes,
around.
oh, just give me a commercial. It's like My Pillow. She's like, no.
After forcing myself to sit through the whole film, which is also funny.
She's like Clockwork Orange. Her fucking eyes are just taped open.
Yeah.
She's like,
Forcing yourself to sit through the film was good.
Elf.
Was getting me.
Elf.
For this article, by the way. So she sort of remembered. She's brainstorming things that offensive. She goes, maybe Elf was offensive. And then she forced herself to sit through it. And every 10 minutes was tough for her. She taped the eyes back. Imagine she taped the eyes back to watch it. And then someone came and said, you doing Chinese eyes? No! She loses her fellowship.
You're fucking done. She has her fellow badge that they rip off of her.
They rip off your fellow. She goes, I'm even more confident that purposefully or not, Elf makes fun of cognitively disabled adults through Buddy. He's referred to as special several times while at the North Pole. So this is their big beef.
Yeah.
He's a human that was raised by elves, and he's like a weird dude.
Yeah, he's like
raised-
Elf.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny too is remember like 5 years ago when people are like, you can't say retard anymore, and everybody's like, well, I don't call people like I don't call someone who actually is that.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, okay, and everybody's like, because a lot of people, this was such a like line where they go, okay, this is not the one they're taking away, and then people are like, okay, fine, maybe it's not, and now they're just like, Elf's bad.
Yeah.
Like it went from like, yeah, don't say retard. And people are like, okay, I can see that. And now people are like, okay, we can't show Elf anymore. And you're
Oh,
like,
it definitely boiled her blood. She goes, his toy making skills are not up to par, and he has to take a post reserved for special elves. So she's fucking steaming at this point when that happened. And but she has advice though, right? So it's not. That's the thing about the fellows. That she's not here to just tell you what's wrong. She has some advice for what they should have done 20 years ago if you had a time machine.
What do you think her parents
If you had a time
would have
machine to
done?
kill Hitler, what would you do? Go back in time and force the director to rewrite Elf?
take out the word special.
Well, no, she's fine with special. She goes, if Buddy does have a disability, the movie never explicitly says so, and it would have been stronger if he had. So she's saying,
Oh, but you're also fine with able-bodied Will Ferrell playing someone with a disability?
no, she is not.
I know.
But that's her thing. She goes, well, that's the next step. And she goes, what should have happened?
Yeah.
You wait till she gets all her stuff about
Is Stephen Hawking should have played...
She does say that. She goes, so basically they should have made, instead of just having this elf that's weird, they should have said like at the beginning, like he has a developmental issue. He's autistic and they should have listed off his things. He has ADD, all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's why he's eating cotton balls and stuff like that. He has ADD. And then after that, they should have, because you're right. You can't now be like, hey, Elf, he's obviously retarded. It's a little less fun now when he's falling down the stairs and doing all this stuff, right? So what they should have done is done that, skipped all those gags, and then just had him see a therapist, and then sort of that's the rest
whole
of the movie.
thing. It's kind of like a Good Will Hunting mashup.
Well, that's what she's saying. She goes, if Buddy does have a disability, it would have been stronger if they had mentioned the disability. Yeah, then he goes to therapy, and then there's your movie credits.
It's a weird assumption that an elf can have a disability, considering it's like a magical thing that's not a real thing.
Yeah, but she didn't like the way it was too close to the human. If you're gonna make a magical, make him fucking magical. She don't like the way you're intruding on our territory.
Well, he was a 6'6" elf.
Yeah, she has a problem with that.
Okay.
She goes, I'm not trying to destroy a modern Christmas classic. So
Yes,
if that's what
you literally are. I mean, you literally are trying to make people feel
She's
bad.
just saying do better next time, I think.
Oh, really?
No, probably not.
It was 20 years ago.
Yeah, no, she doesn't want you watching the
What,
Christmas
Elf
classic
2
ever.
you wanted to do better? Like,
I saw, what was the other one, A Christmas Story? People were getting riled up about, sort of saying it was a message, pro-gun message.
too pro-gun because he wanted the fucking BB gun?
Yeah, but as a physically disabled woman, so she's physically disabled where it comes from, you know what I mean?
She is?
Yeah, that's where it sort of comes from. People love their groups, right? And it sucks when your group doesn't have enough spunk, you know what I mean? Like, you know, some of the ones like deaf who actually their life's really hard, they have to take a back seat to like these new things, you know what I mean? Like anxious.
Yeah.
You think it's deaf, it's bad? I'm anxious.
You're like, you think your wheelchair's bad?
I'm a woman.
I find it hard to go to grocery stores.
Yeah. Why? The colors.
Too bright?
No, the people. There's not enough people of color. You know, because like actually we have buddies that are like, you know, DJ's deaf or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Which by the way, he's got the sickest contraption. So our buddy's super funny comedian. We were hanging out in LA and he's got this contraption because he's like pretty deaf, but he's like, he has hearing aids and stuff like that, which makes him, you know, but without them, he's essentially deaf, right?
Yeah.
He has, but he does on his seatbelt, because we drove together, he puts on your seatbelt a microphone that goes into his ear.
Oh.
So, because he's, you know, he's not going to be able to hear you over the car and
because
stuff.
he has to see. I know. I talked to him about this a million times.
So
before.
I talk into the
'cause he can't see
microphone.
your lips moving. That's his problem.
Yeah, because he can put it together with like the murmurs and then your thing.
Yeah.
But if he's got this thing, it's like a fucking loud microphone speaker that goes right in his ear, and then you talk into the microphone on your seatbelt. Pretty sweet, right?
pretty cool, yeah, I
So they
know
are
that.
sort of cracking things.
Yeah.
For those people, but they don't have as much, you know, pizzazz to their group right now. No. It's not as much of a hot group. Disabled are on the come up.
Does she
right?
say what her
But it's the fake
disability
disabled
is?
people. It's kind of like when the fat models are always like kind of hot. It's the like disabled people that are always like their disability. It's never someone that's like can't move. That's like for the disability community. It's always like, what's your disability? It's like fat.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, does she say what her disability is?
She didn't really say it. Yeah, she goes physical disability, but that just means she's on disability, right?
Well, no, she's a fellow. She's not
Yeah,
on
she's a
disability.
fellow. Oh, I
She's
forgot.
working.
She's a disabled fellow.
Yeah, she's a disabled fellow.
Who's that? A disabled fellow that works there?
You'll have to be more specific. This is insider.
That's so funny saying a fellow, disabled fellow. Hey, someone works at your place. I'm looking for. It's like a disabled fellow. Is a dude? No, it's a disabled fellow. It's a female disabled fellow.
A female disabled fellow.
It's a female disabled fellow.
What don't you get? I don't.
You having trouble with this? So if Elf had a cognitive difference, it would have had to take responsibility for its offensive language. That would mean erasing a lot of the verbal and physical comedy that we're meant to laugh at, but none was funny to me. So she
Imagine being like just that. I mean, honestly, part of me feels bad because you're like, that is her real worldview.
Yes.
Where she has to like watch Elf and be like, this is fucked.
I'm fucking furious.
But she's like watching this like, this is fucked up.
It's just steam coming out the ears.
But like I'm not even like, I don't even know if she's like putting it on.
No, they believe they're bullshit, but that's because they're, it's a cult.
But
right?
some people don't. Like the fucking Merry Christmas thing, I don't think she really believes this. She was just trying to make something.
Don't underestimate girls' ability to believe they're bullshit.
I believe that she believes it.
And multiple bullshit sandwiches that don't really agree with each other. You know what I mean?
Many shit sandwiches.
Yeah, they'll believe it's fucking dark at night with fucking full confidence each time. So Buddy eating cotton balls, running towards moving taxi cabs, and even exposing a department store Santa as fake doesn't inspire me to laugh. Instead, these moments made me wish he had a real good support system in life. So maybe
he has change. Santa.
Yeah, well, he did have
pretty
Santa.
Good support system when you have Santa Claus.
I know. Well, it wasn't good enough for her, a white man, Danny. Contrary to popular belief, it is possible to take a joke about a disability. Well, not for you, though. You just have to let the disabled people that are in on the joke. So Will Ferrell's character should have, once they've made it clear that the disabled person was disabled, then they cast a disabled person. Then they rewrite the script so the joke is sort of like how they're awesome. By the way,
you think he would still do the same numbers?
Well, Elf is the protagonist of the story. Like the dad who's like a dick to him is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like the moral of the story isn't like, and that's why fucking you don't hire fucking
Yeah, of course.
The moral of the story is like, see, that's what happens when you have fucking handy people in your life.
Like don't underestimate them. They can do great stuff.
Yeah, that's the positive message.
Yeah.
But she thought the movie was like, she thought the moral of the message was like, don't have them around, they'll eat your cotton balls.
She probably honestly thinks in her mind too, she goes, you know what, if they just like cast some like nobody actor who has had the right disability, it would have done the same box office.
She thinks that, yeah.
Yeah, she goes like, just because Will Ferrell's in it, like that's not so.
If they have a guy that like had to move the wheelchair.
Yeah, or whatever. She's like, I would have done the exact same numbers.
Well, contrary to popular belief, they can take a joke. So that's what she says.
Oh.
You have to let disabled people in on the joke. The easiest way is to cast disabled actors in the role, especially like physical, fine. If you go, hey, we're getting a guy in a wheelchair, let's hire a guy in a wheelchair. Like, obviously that kind of whatever. I don't think it's one way or the other. It has to be. But if you go mental disability, like if you're hiring someone that's like severely mentally disabled, it's probably like difficult for them to be an actor and memorize lines and do all that stuff.
What?
I apologize for my bigotry.
Do you want to cut that out of the podcast, or you want to be on record as such a crazy claim? Although they did have that movie. Do you remember that show Life Goes On in the fucking 80s and 90s with Corky, and the kid had Down syndrome?
Well, Down syndrome people, like a lot of Down syndrome people are, they can live like somewhat normal lives.
Yeah, for sure.
But it depends if you go for the hardcore hectic ones, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Where you were, there are like grown-ups that have the like mental capacity of like a
child, and they have to be like in care like 24/7.
Yeah, so I think it might be tough for those guys to deliver a 4-page monologue. And to be honest,
I don't.
To be honest,
me and Esme don't. The fellows don't.
To be honest, it's sort of rude to put them to work like that. You know what I mean?
Or if that's their dream, maybe
you can earn in this family too.
No freeloaders.
Get this girl a job at a movie studio.
Oh my god. I mean, fuck. Maybe that's what she's angling for.
She said, or the film could have at least had a character confront the elf's dad as he hurls insults at buddies. But that moment never comes. Well, it kind of does come because the dad's like life falls apart and he's sort of the bad guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not obvious. That's the thing about her. She heard about storytelling because the whole thing was the dad was being a dick and then it like kind of comes around where his life sort of falls apart or whatever. And then he has to realize he was wrong as well. And Elf was good. But it's like, there's also, her thing is like, what should happen is he yells at a buddy. Someone comes, punches him in the face.
Yeah, like she needed a direct consequence. Like it couldn't be like the universe was giving him the consequence. Yeah. That wasn't enough for her for like the entire universe to be against him. It had to be someone be like, hey.
I know.